6:08 p.m. I'd like to call to order the City of Laconia City Council budget meeting for May 8th, 2023. My apologies for being a couple minutes late. Before we go any further, though, we should probably salute the flag. Superintendent Tucker.
Yes, sir.
Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Maybe step up?
Happy to.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're joined this evening at council table by Katie Gargano, our city clerk. I'd ask you to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Here.
Counselor Susie,
Here.
Counselor Lippman,
I am here as well.
Counselor Haynes,
Here.
Counselor Felch,
Here.
Mayor Hosmer.
Here. Thank you. We're also joined by Glenn Smith, Laconia City Finance Director, City of Laconia Finance Director, excuse me, as well as Kirk Beatty, our city manager. First up, item number 6A under presentations is the department budget presentation from the school department. And welcome again, Superintendent Tucker. Come right up. Board Chair Anderson, you're gonna speak as well and present?
Yes, I am. I actually have the easiest job. Do I need to do anything on
Oh,
this?
she flips the slides.
Okay, perfect.
Well, I'm glad you could join us too.
Thank you, thank you. So I am Jennifer Anderson. I am here in my role as board chair, and I'm very proud to be here with my comrades who have worked tirelessly on this budget. And like I said, I have the best job, which is to share some of the highlights. First and foremost, the budget was approved by the school board on May 2nd. It is tax cap compliant. The budget allows for maintaining our current programs and increases, my favorite part, increases opportunities for kids. For example, elementary literacy, in terms of a literacy coach, materials, training for teachers, resources, as well as at Laconia Middle School, a B team for basketball, boys and girls, and at Laconia High School, we've been able to absorb quality program costs from ESSER to the general fund. That includes the woodshop teacher and the materials for Communiversity, woodshop, and F1. We have restructured some administrative positions, which includes the elementary ACTL retired and is now going to be a district-wide curriculum coordinator position, and the middle and high school ACTL is now going to be the Laconia Middle School Student Services Administrator. So lots of great things, and looking forward to our team here giving you more details about that. So just thank you for your continued support of the district and of our Laconia community. So thank you.
Thank you, Board Chair Anderson, and good evening, City Council, Mayor Hosmer, City Finance Director Smith, City Manager Katie. Good to see you here today. Our goal here is to give you a 30,000-foot view of the budget for FY24, and we are cognizant of time, knowing that you have some business to do at 7 o'clock, and I believe that you want to probably have a little bit of time between those meetings, and we'll work hard to make that happen. So to start off, to follow the chair, we've been through a pretty involved budget process that starts actually in December, where we start costing out some things that we're going to be doing for the year. And then we start engaging with the Budget and Personnel Committee to look at what we want to accomplish with the budget. We had some work sessions with the school board, a full board, on March 7th and March 21st. We had a presentation of this presentation with a Budget and Personnel meeting committee right before vacation. And as the chair said, we presented this budget to the full school board at 6:30 on May 2nd. And here we are with you tonight. Just to talk to you a little bit about our priorities very quickly. Obviously, our mission is about serving students, and we try to keep and have done that with this budget, making sure that our kids have opportunities and supports to engage them in teaching and learning experiences. We continue to focus on the Porch of a Graduate, which is our vision for what we want kids to be able to do in school and after graduation, which is to have 6 skills that will make them successful. The chair referenced quality programming for kids, and then obviously making sure that we can recruit and retain quality staff. And because of the contract that the City Council approved last year, we feel we are going to continue to support that with this budget, and are pleased that we can be able to do that. In terms of the district priorities, we are looking at having a progress monitoring tool so that we can look at how our kids are doing in math and reading throughout their time in the 3 levels at elementary, middle, and high. And we made a decision on that this week and are happy that we can do that. We're looking at having a portfolio for each kid so that we can have a body of work that demonstrates their learning throughout their time in the Laconia School District. The system of future learning pathways is really about having learning that engages kids based on who they are and their interest, as well as learning that engages them in their futures. The chair referenced restructuring an administrative position from an ACTL, an academic coordinator, to a district curriculum coordinator. We obviously want to maintain competitive salary and benefits, and we want to continue to mentor and make sure our staff have professional development that allows them to continue to grow as professionals.
Good evening. To highlight some of the pieces for the elementary level, in the school board budget meetings, the elementary team did just want to take a minute to thank the school board for supporting the addition of the arts for the music and the art teacher that were added for this school year. That's been a wonderful addition to the elementary curriculum. Are we good? Okay. It's been a wonderful addition to the elementary curriculum, and it's added to student engagement that is enjoyed for now a full year for both of those electives at that level. The literacy coach, which we referenced with some of our restructuring, the elementary team is very excited about having a coach come in and work directly with staff to offer some modeling and some feedback directly with teachers in the classroom for that feedback. The instructional materials, we had a literacy task force that met. We reviewed some research. We got input from administrators and the teaching staff, and we were able to create a literacy program and plan that will roll out for this next coming school year. And they're excited to have instructional materials to implement that program. Also computerized interventions that we continue to progress monitor students and meet them where they're at, and then, either whether it's enrichment or interventions that are needed to support learning. At the middle school, again, that restructuring allowed for a full-time student service administrator at the middle school. With the increased number of special education students and the district's percent of special education students has increased, that need for a full-time person at the middle school. Presently, it's a position that's split between the middle and the high school, so they're very excited about that. As Chair Anderson mentioned, the B team for basketball for girls and boys, the participation has increased, so we're excited about having those opportunities for students. And they're looking at changing the quarterly exploratory schedule. So they are looking, instead of having semester exploratories, they're looking at changing those every quarter for students, which will allow for more opportunities for students to have a variety of those exploratories. At the high school, we continue to offer the future learning pathways. Again, different ways to engage students in all of the various career explorations. We have vertical planning that will continue at the high school level. Sachem Support Block is a time for the high school to have a time for enrichment and interventions that happen. They tried something different this year, and they are going to be going back to the original model that will have, instead of it a kind of a waterfall schedule throughout the week, they're going to go back to having that be at a set time each day. And there is some software that helps with the scheduling of that Sachem Support Block. The Bridge program will continue, and that is a link for our high school students with adult ed that again offers another pathway and options for students.
Diane Clary, Business Administrator. So at the Hewitt, we have the Perkins Grant, which takes care of quite a bit of the expenditures that the Hewitt has. We also have career explorations. This year they had each of the classes have freshmen come over and explore building trades, plumbing, law enforcement, early education, and the rest, so that the freshmen could get a chance to experience the actual classes before they have the chance to sign in for them. That was very successful. They have decreased the health science staff in response to decreased enrollment in that particular program for this next year. And they're moving from a shared special ed teacher that was shared with the high school. We're taking someone who is going into retirement to come back and help with the IEPs and the 405 plans that they have at the Hewitt. We are a tax cap compliant budget. Some of the things that affect that, as you well know, is the CPIU, building permits, our revenues, adequacy, building aid, fees, free and reduced lunch. Our reserve funds are in a healthy place, and we are always looking to use them if we need for any unexpected expenses that come along. We have the little pie chart that kind of shows you that salaries and benefits are clearly the biggest part of our pie, and then the rest spread out between those other items in the budget. So as an overview, the increases are in salary, and those are predominantly linked to a CBA, so we have no choice on that. A little increase in health insurance, about a 7% increase in health insurance. Special education costs are increasing, and we have additional special ed students in our school district. Contracted services for special ed and maintenance have increases, and our transportation contract ended with First Student, and so their increase was 19% going for the first year. We have decreases in retirement. Legislation was passed that the employer's contribution to retirement was decreased for teachers and employees for next year. And we have paid off our Woodland Heights bond, so our principal and interest debt is down. Not included in our budget through ESSER funds is additional instruction to address learning loss due to COVID. Technology purchases are not coming out of the general fund for the most part next year, because ESSER funds will be there for that. And our big renovation at the high school will be starting next year. There'll be new cafeteria, new HVAC for the older part of the building to get airflow in a better spot, and bathroom renovations at the high school, and all paid by ESSER. The next page that we have is just the highlight is the collective bargaining agreement increase in salaries, 2.88, which is the 3% that was built into the CBA with people coming and going, retirements and others. There's an increase in substitutes. For this particular year, we did not budget enough for our substitutes, so that is an increase there just to cover that. And the benefits, health insurance, and the reason it's almost a 12% increase is because of people changing from single to two-person to family, depending on having children, getting married, that type of thing, so. And the decrease in retirement. Contracted services, special ed, contracted services is up. Part of the reason for that is if an IEP requires certain services and we do not have staff to provide that, we have to contract that out. So that is a big chunk of our increase. And then contracted services, special projects. The way that I approach budget is to actually budget for building maintenance ahead of time. What has been done in the past is kind of waited. If we had fund balance at the end of the year, then those projects would get done. But we have prioritized things that need to be done, our roof at Elm Street, some paving, things like that. So that is budgeted up front. That's a large increase, but it is also necessary to maintain our buildings. And then transportation is the other big increase for both special ed and regular transportation, and tuition for our handicap into non-public facilities. Supplies have been fairly consistent, not too much of a change there. And then the decrease in our principal and interest debt because of the Woodland Heights bond being paid off. Okay, Amy?
So again, as Diane highlighted, the contracted service lines for the providers for the services for speech, OT, PT, all of those things that are in IEPs that are required over the years, those areas have become a critical shortage area. So even though we try to hire our own employees, many times we do have to contract out for those services, and unfortunately that is more expensive. We had one provider this year that there was a 10% increase in the services that they provide for the district. And another area for contracted services, we have a huge shortage in our paraeducators in the district. We have had anywhere from 25 to 30 vacant positions. So again, we've had to go to an agency for those positions, even though we continue to advertise and try to get our own employees for those positions. So again, the cost has gone up significantly. This reflects a $669,000 increase in contracted services for this budget. Again, the court-involved students, I've talked about this before. We have currently, in making this budget, we have 79 students who are court-involved. That includes both the abuse and neglect and the juvenile justice, the delinquency petitions that are filed. And when those students are placed in an out-of-district placement, if they are identified special education, the district is responsible for paying that tuition. So many times these children are placed with really nothing to do with their school experience. It's things that happen in the community or in their home, but we are responsible for that. There is a 402 cap that we're responsible to pay up to for our court-involved students, and the projected number for this coming school year is 57,000. So again, those students, we have 22 students currently that are in out-of-district placements that this budget reflects. 2 of those are district placements. When we have students that we, as a team, have made the decision that we can no longer meet their needs in district. But the remaining part of those placements are all court involved. So unfortunately, we don't have much control over that. And so again, this budget reflects about $167,000 increase over last year for that tuition line that Diane highlighted.
So to wrap things up, I want to thank you for your engagement tonight and listening to us. Hopefully you've got a sense of what we're trying to accomplish in terms of the budget for next year. We have some things differently with the administration. Taken 2 people, one who's moving on to become Laconia High School principal, another one who's retiring, and restructured those based on needs with a greater focus on literacy. I appreciate the BA talking about facilities. We've been able to do a lot of facilities work with COVID spending, and we want to try to rebuild the budget so we can do that. We're really excited about the high school project that the BA mentioned, which is a $6.7 million project, all because we have ESSER funds. We thought that was the best way to focus those funds on Laconia High School. We also are excited about the programs that we were able to start with ESSER, including F1, which is a formula racing program that some of you might have seen, and if you want to ever come and take a look at that, we'd love to have you take a look at it. But it's basically an integrated course that takes engineering and math, and the kids design a business and a Formula One racing car. And so there's so much portrait of a graduate skill that's being taught in that class. The woodshop program 10 years ago cut, and that meant that we had to take 76 kids and remove that class because we had to make a cut. Well, we're putting that back in the budget with ESSER funds last year, and this year there were about 120 kids that benefited from having that woodshop teacher. And some amazing support from the community to have supplies, and we built that in the budget too. So when you talk about future learning pathways and careers, those are the kind of programs that we're really excited about. And I just had a conversation with a mom who has a child in that class, and they're seriously considering going into the trades for a career afterwards. And so being able to have that kind of program when they're freshmen and sophomores, and then being able to move into building trades and other community experiences has been a really important part of what we're trying to do. So again, this has been a collaborative, cooperative process, and you're obviously a part of that. If you have any questions for us, I'd love to take them, and I can defer to my teammates to help me with questions if you'd like.
Superintendent, thank you very much. Thanks to you and your team. Would you be so kind as to define ESSER funds?
Sure. So those are basically the last round of COVID funds. And so there's three different types of ESSER grants that we've been able to secure. Those grants started to come to the district back in 2020. And this is ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 are the last two rounds of those grants that we've been able to use for construction, for renovations of schools, for adding teachers temporarily, and for increasing program.
So if I can follow up, one-time funds for maybe one-time expenses as far as the school goes, right, with construction at the high school?
Right.
Right. So what's the time frame to complete that? Did you say $6.7 million project?
Yeah, so the original time frame to wrap that project up is September of 2024, but we've got word that we might be able to have an extension that goes until 2028. So we're hoping to have that project done by 2024, but to have a little bit of extra time in case we need it, we're absolutely going to explore that option in case we need to do that.
Is that because of the funds, or do you have the funds in-house? Is it because of the sort of the supply chain and construction backup?
The latter, Mayor, really. I think that there's a realization from the federal legislatures and Washington, D.C. that all of these schools are competing to do these same projects with the same companies and the same vendors and the same suppliers. So there's an effort of them to work with us.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you to yourself and the people that worked on the budget. Couple of things. One, we historically have received a more detailed version of the school budget. Will that be coming to us?
Absolutely. We'll get that to you tomorrow.
I guess yeah, I said the same thing to the manager that I'll say to the school. I'm not prepared to support a budget that is effectively a 12% increase when you count the 8% for the tax cap and $1 million added for the construction value. I just think, you know, what we've seen, some of the tax bills going up, it's a real problem. And I'm not to say that I think we need to be like at historical tax cap calculations, but I think 12% is more than appetite than I have. I understand that the contractual obligations that you already entered into, both the city and school level, need to be honored, but I'm going to ask both the city and the schools to sharpen it a bit. And I understand that there's a lot of things that you want to accomplish, and none of them I would disagree with as being good things to do. It's, you know, it's balancing the impact in the city a little bit with some consideration to those people who are really getting hit pretty hard on some of their tax situations. And you know, that on the positive side, you know, people have seen tremendous appreciation in their home values, but if you're not selling,
Right.
You're getting hit with a big tax increase. And so I'd like to, you know, have us work collaboratively in achieving something that's more a little bit lower.
May I respond to that?
Please.
So I understand that. I mean, I'm a taxpayer. I understand that there are people who are challenged by that. At the same time, our budget is not up 12%. Our budget is up 5%. So I am hoping that we can have a conversation about that. I feel like we have worked hard to do some quality work with the budget, and at the same time, ensuring that our kids are getting a quality experience.
So the issue is the amount to be raised by taxes is up 12%. That's the issue. When you add the maximum tax cap calculation, which is 8%, and then you add in the new construction value, the amount to be raised by taxes is 12%.
Understood.
That's the disconnect in terms of, but I think we need to show a little bit of, yeah, we feel your pain, and we're trying to tighten it up on some of the priorities that, it's important to do new things, but do we have to do everything all at once in 1 year? Can we spread it out over a little longer time frame to provide a little bit of relief here? I understand we're not going to go from, whatever to whatever, but it's not something I can support at just to the people I represent. And I'm not picking on the school, saying I'm saying it's citywide.
Understood.
Counselors, any questions?
Yeah, just briefly, thank you for all of you. Somewhat to Henry's comments, I mean, you came in way under that 12% from what I can see. The entire budget, yeah, which is affected a lot by the county budget, but also I think the city budget itself can be lowered. But I think you guys did a great job.
Thank you, Councilor Fretch. I appreciate that.
Go right ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Superintendent Tucker, just curious, and, I don't want any, have there been any contracts terminated because of the budget?
No,
Any programs cut?
no.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We've actually expanded, so like we said, that working teacher, which was an ESSER position, we put that in the general fund because we didn't do that program for 1 year. We want to make a commitment to our kids with that. So we've actually added that position. At the same time, you can see that the overall contractual obligations to the LA is only up. It's less than 3%. With the administrative restructuring, there's no new administrators being added. Many of those administrative positions are grant funded, and we actually were able to reduce the budget for those positions by roughly $20,000 to $40,000 from restructuring because we were able to use grant funds and be creative in the way that we were supporting our special ed students. So we feel really good about that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Go ahead, yeah.
When you said tomorrow we'll see more detail, will that go into, one of the things I was curious about is how much, your revenue stream, okay? How's it all broken down?
Sure.
Grants, tax money, this and that, okay?
Yep.
And then secondly was, okay, we know what the tax cap is, and we're all faced with the same situation.
Sure.
Do you calculate that, okay, you're gonna stay within the tax cap, so that allows me to spend $1 million? So figured you get $1 million, instead of looking at it as that, what can your average homeowner afford?
So we have a built-in mechanism in our city charter called the tax cap that tells us what being fiscally responsible is, and we go with that. And then my hope is we can work with the city council if we need to look at some things, that we can work together to make sure that we can continue to support schools in the way that we can.
Okay, so you feel the tax cap is fiscally responsible?
That's what the charter is saying. And I think that this year is hard, right? Because you have an 8% cost of living increase. So we have 400 employees who are all, and the city's no different. We have employees in the city who are faced with these increases too. So 75% of our budget is salary and benefits. And those employees are being affected by that cost of living increase. So, and our budget is below that. So I understand the challenges, and again, my hope is we can work together as we have for years to support our city and our schools.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll say two things. One is the tax cap is a maximum. It isn't doesn't say you have to spend, and there have been times in economic distress times where we've come in a little bit below the tax cap to send a signal to the taxpayers that we understand they're feeling pain and that we're, there are certain contractual obligations we have to, honor, but there's something we can do to try to ease it a little bit. And then the other thing too is that, there's, in terms of the allocation of the tax cap between the city and the schools, is that we have always approached that as using it based on current spend, if you will, but that isn't in the tax cap. That's, I think, the city council recognizing that, a bit larger budget, that you should get a little bit larger portion of the tax cap. I can think of at least 2 instances in the 16 or so years that I've been doing this that we've had to, work a little bit together to make it work, and I think this is one of these years.
It's an unusual year, Counselor Lippman. I fully understand that.
Counselor Lippman, I don't disagree with anything you said, but I can't help but sometimes sit here and think that your needs as a school department, school district, remain the same, if not increase, every year. The work that you do in our school district reflects our community. And we know that what's incumbent upon you, all of you, in the SAU, it's pretty significant. And as I think you alluded to, or you mentioned, Superintendent, as an 8% inflation issue that all the employees are dealing with, and certainly parents of students are as well.
Right.
So I have no doubt that this will be a good collaborative effort, and we'll find light here. But it's also what may serve you well in a tax cap and in a fairly robust year when it comes to either CPIU or the increase in new construction and renovations. If things flatten out or go backwards, you stand there to pay the price for that as well, yet the needs of your district don't necessarily change. It's not like you have a significant drop-off in students necessarily, and so I think we should remain sensitive to that balance that we're trying to create, maintain here.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you to you and your team. Thank you, Diane. Do you have something else? Sure.
I'm just curious in terms of state budget proposals. I know there are some that would increase funding probably more than what you may have factored in the budget here. Can you speak to any of that?
So we've got some numbers from Concord in the future, and I think you probably know, because I know you've been testifying in Concord a lot. Saw your name in the Manchester Union Leader Sunday. It looks like the most recent version that I've seen from the House, it looks like it's in line with what we would expect. It's hard to know exactly what that's going to look like next year, or in 2 years, but my hope is that we're able to come to a solution with that. So, I mean, again, based on what we're seeing now, it looks like we're doing okay. I don't know how close the legislature is to coming to a final adequacy number for the state and for schools yet.
I guess there are some other things in play too in terms of potential school funding that are outside of the adequacy formula per se.
Sure.
But I think we'd be wise to understand what that picture is, because in some versions of that there's some significant dollars that might be coming Laconia's way. Not to say that you could bank on that today.
Right, sure. Yeah, we'll be watching for that. If you have any information for us, it would be helpful. You always do. We'd appreciate seeing that.
Yeah, I think we'll know that in June.
Yeah.
Superintendent, in what you provide tomorrow, as far as data and documentation, is there information on what you have in reserve funds as well?
Yes,
So
that's
I think, as
all.
Diane said, they were very strong.
Yeah, I think we can either apply that or the city finance director could do that too. Either way, we'll work together to
Technically
make
on our
sure you get
books.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that concludes your presentation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time and your engagement.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.